The Mystara project is proud to present part 24 of the Lore of Mystara series. In this video we look at the period from BC 499 to BC 491, covering the aftermath of the abrupt end of the Nithian Empire that commenced a dark age. Within a decade of the collapse of Nithia, all traces of the empire had completely faded from the northern reaches. The remaining human tribal culture was left to the mercy of giant clans. Spellcasting in the northern reaches stagnated for another millennia, remaining an obscure and primitive art. 5 centuries after landfall, the Alphatians controlled all the lands around their beloved new homeland, including Belisaria, the Isle of Dawn and Ocalia. They were receiving enormous annual tributes, and were complacently sitting on the top of the world. But rot was beginning to set in. The ranks of the military were increasingly made up of barbarians, conquered by the Alphatians and made part of their empire, but owing principal loyalties to their original tribes and homelands. It is not clear who these masses of conquered barbarians were. The continent of Alphatia was only lightly populated by Yanife, Belisaria and Ocalia were uninhabited, and the Thoshans of the Isle of Dawn were considered civilized. Perhaps they were Hellenic-type peoples of the northern Isle of Dawn, and maybe some Alasians that weren't taken back to Nithia. The imperial house of Kerethar were becoming insane and sick from inbreeding to preserve the pure Alphatian race. At this juncture, they first encountered the Thyacian tribes, when these barbarians began preying on the Alphatian sea trade. Because the Alphatian nobility was in decline, little was done to curb this raiding, and in time, it proved to be a serious drain on the economy. Later, as the Kerethar clan fell into decline, one of its emperors permitted Zonga growers to operate undisturbed, but taxed its sale to benefit the imperial treasury. Now, the Zonga trade thrived again, and by the 9th century after landfall, the fruit was again taking its toll on civilization. Sometime between BC 500 and BC 150, the Horathian mage states on the western Savage coast united to form the Margocracy of Herath. Over the previous centuries, Savage coast Araneers posing as human Oltec and elven wizards, slowly established their Margocracy. Seizing power in the region without drawing suspicion from the local folks proved to be an easy task for the crafty Araneers. Over the years, 4 wizards established large domains, Enom, Beravrum, Enshea and Hethsia, and imposed their authority on the Oltecs, elves, and some Tortools there. Finally, the wizards declared allegiance to the great Magus in the forest, and united their domains into a single, large realm. Non-Araneer wizards were promptly and quietly removed from any position of power. Sometime between BC 500 and AC 900, Marudin lived and achieved immortality. He was possibly born among the Alphatians of the Bogland region on the Isle of Dawn. He was a genius with 180 IQ, and was apprenticed to a master sorcerer. When he reached 3rd level, he was hanged for practicing witchcraft by vigilant citizens. Not long after he died, his master arranged for a cleric to cast Raise Dead fully. Marudin was restored, but the kink in his neck from his execution never healed. After his deadly experience, he became increasingly eccentric, speaking in the 3rd person. He also became fascinated by necromancy and immortality. When practicing necromancy, he politely warned his victims not to resist Marudin's will. Those that did, he reluctantly killed. He embarked on the path of the paragon in the sphere of energy. His unnamed sponsor was not bothered by his eccentricities, so it could have been Fla. He chose a completely isolated location for his tower and posted trespassing warnings. He respectfully notified all magic users within 1,000 miles that he was questing on the path of the paragon, giving them ample time to relocate. Some he had to drive out, others dueled him and were slain. He paid his apprentices and retainers well, treated them fairly and honorably. He left generous amounts to them upon his ascension. He became a patron of necromancers, and novel uses of magic. Also sometime between BC 500 and AC 100, the Knoll general, Tewanti Pokar, achieved a great victory, by leading a successful defense of Inkmar against a plane of fire invasion. He was awarded the hereditary noble title of Lord, along with an estate and a business, in the north of the citadel area on Sheepartle Hopway. Sometime between BC 500 and AC 999, Valerius created a sentient rose bush, called the Gorgonyang rose sometime after AC 934, to assist the poor and the afflicted against the red curse. Its petals protect its creatures from the red curse for a week. She placed it in the forests of the Savage Coast, particularly Bosque de los Ojos on the southwestern Gulf of Hule, the forest east of the Bayou, the forest of the Magus and the wildwoods of Herath, and the central Savage Coast forests west of Camel Hump. Sometime between BC 500 and BC 200, the Alassian, Salim ben Hassan, crossed the Altan Tepe mountains and settled in a lush valley. Soon other Alassian settlers followed and called their settlement, Ben Hassan, after its first settler. Sometime between BC 498 and BC 469, the wandering Nithian warrior adventurer, Mardarua, discovered the fertile city of Kini-Dkr, hidden by the surrounding vastness of the western Alassian desert. She was impressed by its beauty, and took it under her protection. Sometime between BC 493 and BC 464, Mardarua embarked on the path of the Paragon in the sphere of energy. Details of her path are unknown, however it is likely that she trained at least 6 apprentice warrior maidens to reach at least 13th level. Sometime between BC 487 and BC 418, she ascended to immortality as patroness of women warriors, birth, death and changing seasons. Her sponsor is unknown, but could have been Gorm, a previous king of Kini-Dkr, or Terastia. Sometime between BC 497 and BC 493, several hordes of orcs tried to invade Ashu. They are met by Essunite forces at the Battle of Urduk in the unclaimed Enisa River grasslands, north of Ashu. Whilst the orcs are repelled, Priest King Ashu is killed in battle. After this defeat, the hordes of the Western Aucklands give up trying to invade Ashu to get through the Great Immortal Shield Mountains. Either they did not find any cavern tunnels to go through, or these orcs preferred a surface route. In BC 493, Ubdala, Queen of the Broken Lands and the chief of the Wolf Riders' horde, reacted to the discontent of her subjects caused by overpopulation, by raising a new great horde. She marched to the surface, then proceeded southeast through the Auckland Hills to the Altan Tepe Mountains. There she recruited goblin wolf riders and gnolls, to destroy the dwarfs of Dengar. Her elite guard was made up of orcish cavalry, led by Chief Krugel. She marched northeast through the Altan Tepes toward Sardal Pass. On the 16th of Felmont, BC 492, Queen Ubdala's great horde was defeated by the Dengar dwarfs, at the Battle of Sardal Pass. Her elite guard made up of orcish cavalry led by Chief Krugel, fought with distinction, but disappeared when it became surrounded. The disappearance was due to the orcish immortal, Karash, being so impressed by their military tactics and bravery, that he transported them to the Hollow World to start a new culture. Queen Ubdala was killed in battle. The routed humanoids fled. Some crowded the Altan Tepes, pushing out the gnomes. Others went to the Kruth Mountains where they clashed with incumbent humanoid tribes. Kobolds fled east. This battle effectively secured Dengar's borders after over 5 centuries of humanoid raids, and is counted as year 0 in the Dwarven calendar. After 500 years of fiercely resisting humanoid invaders, the Burad Rodar had very few warriors left. With the humanoids decisively beaten at Sardal Pass, the Burad Rodar disbanded their order, and formed a family, which they called Buroda. The Buroda consisted of a large proportion of dwarf clerics. Over time, other families allied with the Burodas and a clan was formed. In BC 491, remnants of the routed Great Horde besieged Selenekar, but are defeated. They then split in 2 and retreat to the central and southeastern Altan Tepe Mountains. From there they began raiding the Traladarans, Selenekans, and Thyatians. Around BC 491, Marmati Running Elk was born among the children of the elk, on the Atruagan Plateau. Sometime between BC 491 and BC 200, greenish-grey orcs raiding Thyatis from the southeastern Altan Tepe Mountains were captured as slaves, and placed on a ship to be sold in a slave market. The ship sunk in a violent storm, and the orcs eventually washed ashore on an island far to the east of Cape Hatteras. On the island, the orcs learned to live with limited resources, and eventually diverged to become Kura. The Kura followed Tarpu, the pig immortal, and his wife Duana, the sea immortal. Eventually they learned to build canoes. The Kura then sailed to a volcanic island they named the Mountain of Death, or Teki Nuraria. They landed on the island and slaughtered the decadent inhabitants, possibly Alphatian or Thyacian descendants. The air elemental like Kalmuru surrounding the island caused ships to become confused. The Kura opportunistically started attacking these disadvantaged ships for plunder. This concludes our look at the decade after the Nithian collapse and the beginning of a dark age.